All right, we're back. Welcome to the second episode of Dive Bar City. And I'm sitting here with a good friend of mine. His name is Mike Massano. And Mike is, he's a, like I said, great friend of mine. I've known him for about 20 years. And the interesting thing about Mike, among other things, is he is almost exactly 10 years older than me. So this show, we're going to explore the differences between the mid to late 70s and the mid to late 80s and what life was like growing up in those decades when you were in your 16, 17, 18 years old. So before we get to all that, though, we've got a little segment that we call Chump of the Week. And so this week's Chump is the Purdue's athletic director, Tommy McClelland. So Tommy wanted to talk about, how awesome Purdue is. And he said, quote, "We are here to win championships. If you don't want to win championships, go to Indiana." Well, Indiana, their football team was 16-0 last year, and they won the national championship. So I don't know what the F he's talking about. So, Tommy, you are my chump of the week. All right, so let's get on with the show here. So, Mike, why don't you introduce yourself to those people that are going to be listening to this?
Yeah, so how you doing? So like you said, we've known each other for about 20 years. Remember we used to talk a lot on the phone. You were the contact for Orion, right? When we worked at General Motors. And then I remember I was transferred into manufacturing finance, and we were set. They set us together.
Big mistake.
Yeah, and of course, it didn't take long for us to realize that our mutual love of music. One thing I remember, though, I remember coming in one day, and you had your list of all the CDs that you had, right? From the vault, the famous vault. And I remember looking at it, and it was massive, all these CDs that you had. And I think my first comment was, "Where's the Bowie?" Do you remember that? And I remember you looking at me like,
Yeah, really?
"Hey, boss."
Yeah.
That's all you got to say
Yeah.
is, "Where's Bowie?"
Take it easy. I'll
right.
buy it tonight.
Right. But at any rate, so that common interest of music is kind of held us together these many years.
All right, so we were talking about music and bands, and so one of the things that we got talking about was and we touched on this a little bit last week as your first concert. So, Mike, what was your first concert? How old were you? Where'd you go? Who'd you see?
So does this include concerts that you went to with your parents?
Let's exclude those.
Let's exclude it because that was Andy Williams at Pine Hill.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna edit this out. That's so horrible.
So I think the first concert that I was rock concert was probably Paul McCartney and Wings in '76 at Olympia. It was May of '76. So.
Okay, so Olympia. I saw one Red Wing game there, so I never saw.
Such a cool building.
So but there's an example. So May of '76, you're 15 or 16 years old.
Yep.
You go see Paul McCartney and Wings, and at that time I was playing in the playground, like on the slide or the swings or something. Okay,
Yeah.
But that would soon change.
Yeah. Growing up a Beatle fanatic, to actually see Paul was just tremendous. So.
All right,
it was a great show too, by the way.
Well, who'd you go with?
Well, my sister, who was integral in my musical upbringing, and her boyfriend, and then a couple other people were there. So.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So you didn't drive?
I did not drive.
All right.
No, I was only 15? Yeah, 15.
Okay, so let's first concert. Okay, so let's go down this list. I got a little list here of venues in Detroit, And in no particular order, but we're going to call it this will be a first concert. What was your first concert at Joe Louis?
I think it was Rush. I didn't see too many concerts at Joe Louis, maybe two or three. The Palace kind of took over pretty quickly when that was built. But I think it was Rush.
Okay. My first show at Joe Louis was ZZ Top. And so that was in '86. I wasn't even 16 yet. I remember a friend of mine, Jeff, who I still talk to, him and I skipped school. And this is before Ticketmaster exploding everywhere. People were still going down to the box office of the venue,
I remember doing that.
getting in line and buying tickets.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe they got released to the other areas after that. I don't know, but there was an incentive to do that. So we go down there, downtown Detroit, 16, 15 to 16-year-old kid. I remember he had this Pinto, this great
Right.
great Pinto, and so we find a spot to park. Just probably wasn't real parking, but there were some cars there, and we wedged in. But when we come back out, we can't get out. Other people have done the same thing.
Boxed you in.
We're boxed in, and so we're standing there and we're looking at this car, and a guy walks by, and he's like, "What's going on?" And we're like, "Man, we're boxed in. This is our car. We can't get out." And he goes, "Well, let's just move this other car." I go, "What do you mean? What do you mean move this other car?" He goes, "Let's pick it up and move it." And, and I look at Jeff and I'm like, he goes, and it was like a little Volkswagen Rabbit.
Okay.
The three of us grabbed the.
It wasn't a Cadillac
No,
Eldorado.
no. But still, the thought of picking a car up and moving it out of the way was something that had not.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Crossed your
I
mind.
wasn't there yet. And so we picked the front end of this car up, moved it over 8 or 9 inches, and off we went.
Hilarious.
Yeah, Detroit's first. You gotta love Detroit. All right. So okay, the Palace of Auburn Hills. What was your first show there?
Palace of Auburn Hills. It might have been. I think it might have been Paul McCartney again. Yeah.
Okay, so a repeat.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would have been like 80. No, it was 90. He came around in 90. So,
Okay, I think you've been looking at my notes here because the Palace, my first show at the Palace was ZZ Top.
was it?
It was a repeat. Yeah,
That's funny. That's one band that I've never seen that I've always wanted to see.
yeah, they're showmen. They're showmen. Yeah, Black Crowes opened for them, and the Palace had just opened. I think we saw that show like in 90, 91. All right, how about Pine Knob? What was your first Pine Knob show?
First Pine Knob show was Seals and Crofts. Do you remember them?
Summer Breeze.
Summer Breeze. Yeah. Again, my sister right there. I don't know. She stumbled on some tickets and she said, "You want to go?" And I grabbed the kid from across the street and went and saw Seals and Crofts.
Okay, so here's a 10-year later thing. So my first show at Pine Knob, I was 17. Was Leonard Skinner. Like the tribute version,
Okay.
like the round 2
Right.
version of Skinner.
Post airline disaster, right?
Yeah, very post. How about Kobo?
Cobo, probably Jay Giles. Jay Giles. Yeah, because I know we'll get into Silverdome, but we had saw, my wife and I, Lori and I, saw Peter Frampton in '77, and Lori loved Peter Frampton, or she loved Jay Giles. So it was Peter Frampton, Steve Miller, and Jay Giles. And so we got there a little late, so
Uh-oh.
we missed about half of Jay Giles. So
This eventually became your wife?
yeah. So that was
Sounds like she got over it.
yeah. Well, but anyway, so I tried to make it up to her by getting Jay Giles there, and they used to come like every 6 months back then. So we got tickets to see Jay Giles. So that was my makeup. So
Well, so Kobo Arena for me, and it's ironic because I just saw Foo Fighters here the other night at Ford Field, Foo Fighters was my first Cobo Arena show. Yeah, this was back in, so it would have been back in '03. That's hard to, man. Yeah, I think they were talking about their kind of when they started, and I started thinking, man, I saw them 23 years ago for the first time.
It must have been Cobo's dying days.
It was, oh my gosh, compared to the other arenas, I was like, it was time for Cobo to go. All right, let's we'll come back to this. You mentioned Jay Giles, so that reminds me. I had that out. Okay, so I had that album. The first album I ever bought was an Elvis Presley album, Separate Ways, and the reason I probably bought that was my mom and my brother were huge influences music at that time. And if you remember music back then, like this is like 1977-ish. Like there was no cable TV wasn't out. No. Like I think most homes they had a record player in their living room. It was a lot of times a furniture piece. It might have been integrated with a TV or whatever. But anyway, people listen to albums a lot in their homes. And so I remember buying that album. And then so as we were getting ready for this show, because I wanted to ask you, like, what were you doing, in the home there, music-wise? And I started thinking of some of the albums I bought. So keep in mind, I had a brother 4 years older, still do, but I have a brother 4 years older than me. So he was kind of like paving the way, like with the radio stations, with the disc jockeys.
Same with my sister too.
With the Dread Cards, Detroit Rockers Engaged Against Disco, right. Dick the Bruiser,
JJ and the Morning Crew.
So he's paving the way, right? And he's I'm watching him and, what's cool, what's not cool. And so I'm thinking about this. So when I was 7 or 8, these were some of the albums that I bought with my own money, starting with Elvis Presley. Cheap Trick Live at Budokan, which I still listen to all the time. Aerosmith Live Bootleg, still listen to that all the time. A couple Cheap Trick studio albums, In Color and Dream Police. Jay Giles Blow Your Face Out, which I just remember that it was like a double album, and just had that big Jay Giles Blow Your Face Out at the cover of it. Bob Seger Live Bullet, we had Beautiful Loser. They had that Cars album where the girls behind the steering wheel. Tom Petty, I remember Damned Torpedoes. I remember I had that one, and then of course I shouldn't say of course, but I was only like 7. But Boston, that first Boston album. And I'm thinking I was 7, 8 years old, and I still listen to this stuff all the time.
Yeah. See, albums for me didn't come around until later. It was all 45s. So I grew up in the era of CKLW and WXYZ, and it was all top 40 stuff. FM radio, I think it was out there, but I didn't really discover it until probably I was 12, 13. So it was all like top 40. In fact, CKLW was probably rebel radio in our house because it was all WXYZ, which was, Neil Diamond and Barbra Streisand and all that kind of stuff. So to switch over to CKLW, you heard the top 40. So you heard a lot of Gary Puckett and the Union Gap and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so AM radio was dominant.
That was dominant when I was growing up.
Well, and they also had a bigger signal, right? The signal reached more people.
Yeah, and it was big influence.
So when do you remember listening to Riff or ABX for the first
time?
Well,
I remember my sister was dating a guy that was in a band, and I never forget the name of this band. It was Pontius Pilate and the Nail Drivers. Yeah, great name for a band. But he was in a band, so I think his influence on my sister, and then of course my sister's influence on me. I remember her coming home and saying, "Oh, you should listen to the WABX, because they'll play like 5 Beatles songs in a row." And we're talking maybe 72, 73. And, I would tune in, and sure enough, just in the middle of the day, they go, we're going to play side 3 of the White Album.
So they can do whatever they
Yeah, it was still like underground radio, which is what FM was considered. But
disc jockeys had more power.
yeah, they definitely had more power. And, but, that was kind of like, that was getting towards the end of that era. They became like riff, playing a song, every 3 songs in a commercial, But before that, yeah, they were truly underground radio. So,
Well, speaking of their power, I remember this poster. Do you remember the Kiss poster where it was like Revolutionary War themed, where they were kind of in, Revolutionary War kind of, but they're in their makeup, but that scene where the drummer boy and the other guys are marching, it's a famous painting from the United States of America, 1776. Do you remember that?
I do not.
Well, anyway, they co-opted that, and Peter Criss, he's got the little drum in front of him, and so anyway, it was something called the Kiss Army,
Yeah.
and I remember me and my brother belonging to the Kiss Army. We had like a membership card or button that we were in the Kiss Army, and I'm like 7,
Right.
and so I thought about that, and I looked it up what it was. It was a fan club. The Kiss Army was a fan club. And it started in 75. These 2 kids, they wanted to lobby their local radio station to play more Kiss. And so, I don't know, they got some letterhead, I don't know. But they didn't call themselves a fan club, they called it the Kiss Army. And they started this letter campaign to these radio stations. And so it caught on, and then their local station started playing a lot more Kiss. So anyway, little side note there. So okay, so you brought over some ticket stubs from this era. So again, we're talking about what was life like in the mid to late 70s. And so, of course, the people that are listening can't see this, but I see these ticket stubs in front of me, and we've got 6 ticket stubs here, and they're ripped in half, because I guess you'd walk in there, and obviously getting into shows was a lot different back then. So your stub is ripped in half, but I'm looking at, first one, I'm looking at Bad Company, May 16th, 1979, Cobo Arena.
Yep.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. Cobo was the place to go. If you had to rank or list the amount of concerts that I've seen, Cobo would probably be at the top.
I think Cobo was one of the top places
Yeah.
in the nation.
I saw so many concerts.
Because it comes up a lot. People talk, like, you hear artists and bands talking about Cobo.
Tier A, Tier B, Tier C, all that stuff.
And then interesting on these ticket stubs, it's not like dot matrix lettering. It's the band's printed logo. It is so cool. All right, so we've got let's see, what's the next one here? We've got looks like we got Peter Frampton. I think you mentioned this. June 18th, 1977.
Yep.
Pontiac Silverdome. Was that the Jay Giles one you were talking
That
about?
was Jay Giles and Steve Miller. Yeah.
All right, well, somebody missed half of Jay Giles that day. Nice job, buddy. Okay, what else do we got here?
She forgave me.
We've got another 1978 show, Boston at the Silverdome. So, okay, do you remember that show? Because I remember urban legend said that Boston was horrible live, and the Silverdome was not the greatest place to play.
I don't remember it being like horrible, but they were like kind of like a manufactured band. Did you ever hear the story behind their first album? They did it remotely. They weren't in the studio at the same time.
High tech.
Yeah, high tech. They would the guitar guy would do his thing, and the singer would add his stuff later.
So how do you translate that
how do
live
you
to
translate
Silverdome?
on a stage?
I'm thinking
right?
you don't. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
All right, so that ticket was probably disappointment. Okay, what else do we got? Oh, downtown Royal Oak.
Yes.
Royal Oak Music Theater. I'm guessing this was around the same time. Ian Hunter downtown Royal Oak. Do you remember that show?
Yeah, I do. Because Lori was a big Ian Hunter fan. She was a big Mott the Hoople fan. Her friend Martha was a big Mott the Hoople fan. So
Yeah,
I went along.
Yeah.
It was a great show.
Yeah, they're the original Once Bitten, Twice Shy.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
Great White did that.
Yeah.
And then we've got a band here. Wow, you're going to a lot of shows. September 21st, 1978, Olympia.
Olympia Stadium.
The band Yes.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
It was in the round. They were at their peak.
All right. So anybody listening to this show under 55, you're probably going to have to go look this band up because they are definitely.
Remember they had a little comeback in the early '80s.
MTV.
With Owners of a Lonely Heart.
Well,
and stuff.
don't say it like that. That was a great song.
Yeah, it was a good song.
And it was a cool video too. The guy that got thrown off the building.
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, I mean, like he fell like 8 stories. I mean,
Okay.
but it was funny because you could tell it was like a dummy, and the arm was kind of flailing out. But it's like that was a great video.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so there's one more ticket on here. Then this is. We were talking about this before we fired this puppy up. You got a ticket here. December 7th, 1979. The Who at Pontiac Silverdome. And then we were talking because right around that time was the tragedy,
December 3rd.
and we looked it up. It was December 3rd.
Yeah.
It was in Cincinnati,
Right.
whatever I don't know if it was their riverfront. I don't know what.
I don't know what the venue was. Probably Riverfront. 'Cause
Well-
they were doing stadiums back then. So
Well, it would have been cold, but
yeah,
so.
that's true.
But either way, for those that don't, there used to be a show at WKRP in Cincinnati, and they dedicated a whole episode to this.
Lonnie Anderson.
Lonnie Anderson, yeah, that helped distract. But unfortunately, sadly, Mike was explaining this to me. I didn't know the details, but they were doing what they call festival seating, which meant first come, first serve. And I thought that meant once people got into the venue, they would rush to the front of the stage to get their spot. And then there were people that were trampled and crushed, and there were, I think, 7 or 8 people died. But Mike told me no, they were killed outside of the venue. People crushing to be the first people into the venue. So
Correct.
yeah,
In fact, I think the Who did their show that night.
I don't think-
without knowing what happened
right.
outside.
That's what I recall.
As I recall that.
Well, I only recall that because of that WKRP show. They talked about that,
Right.
And they were talking about it as DJs. They were already in the venue, and they had a fun time that night, not knowing what happened. Yeah, so
I can see how that can happen though, because when we got Zeppelin tickets in '77, I think, I remember we had to get at this. This was another case where you had to go to the venue to get the tickets. So we got in a car, 6 o'clock in the morning. A couple of us. I can't believe my parents let me drive. I only had my license for like 3 months.
have you ever seen Dazed and Confused? The movie Dazed and Confused?
No,
The end of that movie, the 4 of them are driving to Houston to buy Aerosmith tickets.
really.
Yeah.
So it was a snowy morning that morning. It was like wet snow. We get there and we get out and everybody's like got sleeping bags and blankets. And it was pretty apparent after about a half hour that the guide that led you to the ticket office was not going to hold. And there was a point where, yeah, you had your like hands up at your chest. And I mean, if the crowd went one way, you were going to fall. It was crazy.
Just
So-
to buy the tickets.
just to buy the tickets. I'll never forget that. In fact, we gave up. We went back to our car. It's like, okay, it's not worth it. So while we were waiting for everybody to come back to the car, we noticed that they kind of got things under control a little bit. And we got back in line and ended up getting tickets. But I can see how that could happen, definitely.
Yeah, that's well, yeah, and over time, there's for some older folks listening, like they changed that. They would you'd show up, they'd give everybody a number.
Right.
So
or a
you're
wristband or something.
yeah. So you're out there. You got your number 950, and then they would randomly draw a number, and that would be the first person. So you had no incentive to try to crush your way to the front. You know.
Right.
So all right. So back then. So what are you driving? What were you driving your future wife? When you were driving her to these fantastic shows?
Right.
What were you driving back then?
So I think at first it was my parents' 71 Maverick, Ford Maverick. Yeah, that was the vehicle of choice.
So that car would have been 5 or 6 years old by then,
Yeah.
and it was probably half rusted out back.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I remember I got a paint job. I wanted it to be. My wife had a 75 Monte Carlo, like was a silver blue. It was really a cool car. I thought, oh, I'll get silver blue on the Maverick. I'll have it painted, and look like an Easter egg. But yeah.
So what kind of stereo system? Because you sound like you were a rocker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of
I
stereo?
don't know if
system?
I did it. I didn't put a very good stereo in that car. I did have good stereos in later cars, though. I had a Grundig. I don't know if you're familiar with that brand. A Grundig. I mean, that was a really good stereo.
Was that like a Mickey Shore? Like
It was a Mickey. I think it was a Mickey Shore.
yeah, that was probably
14 and
Yeah.
14 and Van Dyke. Yeah.
yeah. That's it's probably like a German brand.
It was a German brand. Yeah. It was.
It's so predictable.
Yeah.
So in '86, my first car was a Ford Elite, and when the face that you made right there,
Yeah.
that's the face that everybody makes when I tell them a Ford Elite, and then I go, well, it's like a Mercury Cougar, and then people are like, still not helping me.
Keep going.
The Ford Elite was in the family of the Gran Torino, like the Starsky and Hutch car.
Okay.
So do you remember Starsky and Hutch?
Yeah.
The show. Okay, so my car had a hood. The hood was very long. So they had those long hoods. So
Land
anyway,
a plane on it.
yeah, it was. But it was my first car. It was awesome, and so one of the funny stories about. So you said the Maverick was a piece of shit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this thing is, I got it. It's 10 years old, and I noticed that the floor started getting like I noticed the floor was wet. So there's carpeting, right? Those cars had carpeting, and then and you had floor mats over the carpeting, hopefully, and then but underneath that was the sheet metal. So I noticed that it was getting wet, and so and then I noticed that the carpeting was starting to tear through. And so what was happening was the bottom of the car had rusted through, and water was getting up into the passenger compartment. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good to know. Keep that floor mat on top, and we'll just go about our business. And so what I didn't know, back then, pop was still sold in glass bottles. Big,
Yeah.
sturdy glass bottles, right? 16.9 fluid ounces in Michigan. And so I would be driving around, and I loved Mountain Dew and Mountain Dew glass bottles. And you'd finish a pop, you just shove it under the seat, right? And so my buddies would do the same. If they were in the car with me, well, one day I'm driving through the neighborhood, and I hear this. I hear, summertime, the windows are down. I hear this noise, this ting, 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 and then I'm like, what's going on? And then I hear it again, ting, 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 and I look, and what was happening was these Mountain Dew bottles, I don't know, they were like funneling.
They found their way.
They were funneling out from under the seat somehow. And that hole had gotten big enough, and they were falling through the bottom of the car. They were bouncing on the road, and my tires were hitting them and either crushing them or blasting them into the curbs.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so I had to pull over, So
So your car became like the Flintstones, right? You could put your feet down to the road.
Practically, practically.
Oh, that's funny.
So, okay, so you were late 70s. Disco had come onto the scene. And what was your response to disco?
God, I hated it.
You were,
Oh yeah, Dread Card, Member, all that stuff.
and Dread
Yeah.
Card, that was a card
That was
that
a riff.
WRIF,
Right.
they had
What
a
did it stand for again?
Detroit Rockers engaged
you
against
go.
disco.
Yeah.
And the Dread Card would give you like a discount at Harmony House.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
But you were a proud
Definitely.
carrying member of that Dread
God,
Card.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then I remember the whole Death Before Disco, Disco Sucks.
Right.
And okay, so there was no tolerance.
No, none whatsoever.
So, do you remember the Detroit Tigers, Chicago White Sox?
Definitely. Steve Dahl. Steve Dahl, yeah. Who did a stint at ABX for a while. He was the morning guy, as I recall, for about 2 years. But yeah, I do remember that.
And what was it? What was the event?
It was a Tiger White Sox doubleheader, right? So they did this event in between games where everybody was supposed to bring their disco records to the stadium, and they were gonna blow them up or light them on fire. I think blow them up, right? They blew them up.
Yeah,
And,
they gave if you brought your disco record, you got in for like half price.
Okay, that's right.
And then I also think they underestimated the number of people
Right,
that were going to do it.
right.
So they piled all these records in center field between the doubleheader.
Right. Yeah, and then they blew them up, and it created such a disaster on the field that they had to cancel the second game. Right.
Well, people started running onto the field as well. It was
Right.
it was
Well, they had all game one to get all liquored up, right? So, I mean that led to that added to the fuel of the fire. So.
well, funny story. The game one pitcher that day in '79 was a guy by the name of Pat Underwood.
I remember that name.
Yeah, and he is from Kokomo, Indiana. And after Pat's playing career, he made his way back to Kokomo, Indiana, and he started working for one of the GM facilities down there. And so I was also associated with a GM facility in Kokomo, and they were having a golf outing, and the Kokomo plant put together a golf team. And so I got paired up with Pat Underwood. And it was one of the best experiences. I mean, to be riding around
Yeah.
with a major league pitcher that was playing during my heyday of being a baseball freak,
Right.
with baseball cards and all the books and the magazines, and he's telling me these stories. And that came up that day. He pitched the first game of that
Disco night,
doubleheader. And but he tells another story that's really funny. Somebody told me this story, and so I had to ask Pat if it was true. And it was funny. So it's not a great story about him at first, but as he's telling the story, I could see the competitive fire in him coming out.
Right.
Keep in mind when this was happening. This was a few years ago. I mean, Pat was like 65 years old, but still looked great, great shape, great dude. But the story is, so he's pitching a game. Lance Parrish is the catcher, and so first pitch, dude just smokes one. First pitch of the game, dude just smokes it. So he's on with a frozen rope single. Next pitch, next batter, he smokes it, but it goes foul. But it was hit like a rocket. Next pitch, he smokes it. Another single. Now they're on first and third. Next pitch, dude just drills this ball and it's like barely foul. It would have been a 3-run home run. And this guy on every pitch, people are
Right.
lighting him up.
Solid contact.
Roger Craig comes out, and Pat's telling me the story. He's telling now. I'm hearing it from the horse's mouth, and he's like, Roger Craig was a very tall dude.
Pitching coach.
He was a pitching coach, and so he's out on the mound. Lance is out on the mound, and Lance is a tall dude.
Yeah.
And Lance has got his helmet off or his mask pulled up, and Roger looks at Lance and he goes, well, how's the stuff looking? He goes, how the F do I know? I haven't caught one yet.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And then Pat goes on to say that he got out of the inning, ended up winning or gave up, I don't know, one run or whatever, but ended up, that was the only run he gave up and won the game. But still,
All right.
yeah,
Yeah, that would have been very cool.
good story.
Yeah, I'm sure he had some good memories of disco night.
Yeah, that was. I tell you, being a kid in the early '80s, I mean, baseball was very dominant. So,
Yeah, same here. Same here.
well, we're getting to be about that time, my friend. I appreciate you coming out.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah,
Yeah. So when you're number one on Spotify, you'll look back at this moment and say, okay, this was the turning point.
This was
This is
the
what propelled me
this was
to
the
overtake
fuel.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I do remember that David Bowie comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I just remember the look in your eyes, like, boss, is this all you got, really?
yeah. When you came into the studio today, I'm sorry. As everybody knows, we're recording this at our favorite place, New Man Place Lounge in Trenton, Michigan, and so there's a lot of rock and roll memorabilia here at this establishment. And when this was Mike's first time visiting, and when he was walking around, he saw a Bowie portrait prominently displayed, and he kind of looked at me. He goes, "Oh, Bowie, huh?" I didn't quite remember what he was talking about. I'm like, "Yeah, what's wrong with Bowie?" Well, I guess. Well, anyway, so that's the background. All right, my friends. Once again, Mike, thanks a lot. I love these stories, and that 10 years between us culturally was just a chasm.
It is.
What awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could take any 10-year period, and there was probably more of a distance between 68 and 78 than probably any other 10-year period.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I'd say 68 to 78. You won't top that difference.
Yeah,
But 78 to 88 sounds like,
Right.
Other than the POS cars. All right. With that, AMF. See you next time.